Previously on Asian Air Safari, I have decided to share my fascination for ancient Egypt with some dear friends, bringing them along for an 11-day adventure. Together with Aziz and Mina, we planned for a journey that took us from the ends of Lower Egypt, cruising along the Nile to Upper Egypt, leaving no stone unturned, no tomb unexplored. In this second half of our adventure, we sail our way to Aswan, learn about the Nubian culture, and cross the borders all the way to Abu Simbel. We left off with the Asian Air Safari Dahabiya approaching the Nile locks, marking our entry to Egypt's Aswan region. Like many of Egypt's archaeological sites, the digging and the discovery continues. A cruise along the Nile showcases the various facets of Egypt. Not only is the river dotted with remnants of the past, it also gives us a peek on how Egyptians live in the present. Just after sunrise, we passed by beautiful rock formations. We decided to stop and investigate.
Isn't it great to have our own boat and be able to stop anywhere along the Nile?
Yes!
Aziz, what are we doing here, by the way?
Okay, we will see the quarry site for the sandstone that was used in the ancient Egyptian temples from Pharaoh's time up to Greek-Roman time.
Ever wondered how the pyramids and Egypt's great structures were built? It all began in these quarry sites along the Nile, where giant blocks of sandstone were hauled and sent up or down the river. A very complicated logistical feat. This quarry site is called Silsila, which means chain of mountains.
By the way, those layers, geologists, they call them strata. Every strata of those or every layer to be formed in such a way, it's 100 years. So look at that piece of rock, it's thousands of years of human history.
Similar to any sacred site in Egypt, these quarries are not just any pit where large stones are extracted. These sites are highly regarded by the ruling dynasties, and the proof can be seen on its walls. You can see inscriptions by the many rulers of Egypt, such as Hatshepsut, Ramses the Great, and Ramses III. It was amazing to see firsthand the building blocks of the entire Egyptian civilization. Our Dahabiya takes us further south to another site that has likely benefited from this ancient quarry. We dock along the banks of the city of Edfu. From here, we travel by 1 horsepower to our next stop.
We're trying to get everybody on a carriage ride. It's hard to organize. Everybody is choosing the color of their horse, and the girls want a good-looking coachman as well.
As soon as everyone was happily in their carriages, it was time to explore the city. Edfu is a friendly provincial town, which used to be a flourishing Greco-Roman settlement. But what makes Edfu special is a grand temple complex found in its center.
This temple is dedicated to the falcon god Horus. It was built during the time of Cleopatra VII, and it is one of the most completely preserved temples along the Nile.
In all of Egypt, the Temple of Horus has remained the most intact, having escaped the flooding of the Nile.
For the first time, you will see big space outside the temple itself. You know why? Because every year, the priests in the temple, they had to come to act that blade, a battle between the good and the bad. We had a battle here. They put masks in their heads made out of papyrus, and they will act this beautiful play in this area.
The great battle of Edfu was waged between the falcon god Horus and the god of chaos Set, which ended in the triumph of good over evil.
Horus considered Jesus of the ancient Egyptian mythology. Isis was considered Mama Mary of the ancient Egyptian mythology.
The defeat of the god Set was sometimes represented by the capture of a crocodile or hippopotamus, which was sacrificed by the high priest, declaring victory on top of the temple's roof.
These were actually the ancient steps where the priest would carry the offering and the statue of the god Horus up in the roof during a certain period of time in the year.
The current temple was built over older remains of ancient sites, making this spot a very rich historical mine. If only the walls could talk, they would speak of stories of many lifetimes. Up next, our journey on the Nile continues to stretch southwards as we finally reach the Aswan region, where Egypt's ancient roots continue to spread across generations. We continue to sail southwards to Aswan. For Egyptians, the Nile is the source of all that is good. And this is why there are plenty of temples built along its banks. The Temple of Kom Ombo was one of them, a popular stop for travelers to give offerings to the gods for a safe passage. Built over an area that used to be infested by crocodiles, what is unique about this temple is that it is dedicated to two gods, the falcon god Horus to the left and the crocodile god Sobek to the right. Each half of the building was constructed as a mirror image of the other, showing an incredible use of symmetry. Horus, the savior god, and Sobek, the god of wrath and chaos, were in fact enemy gods. But in Kom Ombo, they are depicted side by side. Another thing that sets this temple apart are some striking carvings that are unusually modern. Images of medical instruments, from surgical implements, birthing tools, and even dental apparatus. Apparently, Kom Ombo is a place where people sought treatment for their infirmities. In one waiting area, you can still see graffiti left on the stone by some bored patients trying to amuse themselves. Ever wondered where the RX symbol in modern prescriptions originated?
Later on, in Latin, this I, with the use of the god Horus, became the RX. Do that now. When you ask the doctor what this, he would think it's a Latin symbol. No, I'm sorry. It's an ancient Egyptian symbol, taken from the symbol up here, literally meaning, I'm giving you the medication with the great blessing of God Horus.
It was very fascinating for everyone to see some of history's earliest recorded medical remedies and tools, proving that ancient Egypt is truly ahead of its time. We continued to sail downstream, passing by a beautiful temple along the banks. This is the Temple of Philae.
The Temple of Philae is considered sacred by the ancient Egyptians because they believe that this is one of the burial places of the god of the underworld, Osiris.
Osiris, the mighty king who passed judgment upon the dead, is husband to Isis, the Egyptian goddess of life and magic, who is also venerated here. Their son Horus is the falcon god worshipped in many other temples across Egypt. Scattered around the temple walls are carvings of Coptic crosses left by early Christians.
So you had beautiful images for the crosses. This temple witnessed big part of it. When the Christians, they took over the temple here, they changed this area to become a church.
Incredibly well preserved, the Temple of Philae is one of the most beautiful temples you will see in all of Egypt. However, the whole complex does not stand on its original site. Due to the flooding caused by the construction of the Aswan Dam, the structures had to be dismantled block by block and transferred to where it is now. Sailing on, we finally reach the Aswan High Dam. The ancient Egyptians attributed the life-giving Nile's annual flooding to the god Hapi and his pleasure or displeasure of their offerings. Today, the construction of the Aswan High Dam ensures control of the Nile's flooding, preventing famine and drought. The dam caters to the needs of modern Egypt: flood control, water storage, and hydroelectricity. Hence, in the midst of these ancient structures, Egypt does not fall behind in making sure that its present catches up to the future. Up next, we go on the last leg of our journey, reaching the land of the Nubians and learning about their unique way of life while being dwarfed by the majestic temples of Abu Simbel. We have now made it to Aswan, Egypt's southernmost frontier. Here, we find the Nile more serene than anywhere else, flowing through giant boulders and palm groves. And at once, we found ourselves again in a different world, with a different set of food, culture, and traditions. This is the land of the Nubian people. They belong to one of Africa's oldest civilizations, tracing their home between southern Egypt and Sudan. They are known for their music, colorful art, skill in archery and warfare. Some Nubian rulers also ruled as Egyptian pharaohs for some time. Today, we are going to visit them and soak in their rich culture. But to get to the village, we must cross the sand dunes in the traditional way, by camel. As soon as everybody managed to get over that hump, literally, our caravan went on its way.
Everybody's having fun. It's a great experience. A lot of them have their first camel ride. I scare them that if they shout too much, they fall into the water.
I am not sure who got more scared, the riders or the camels, because of all the screaming. But we all managed to enjoy the scenery.
Where else can you get a camel ride with this nice view? It's not just the desert, it's the water, it's the Nile, and we're going to a Nubian village to have dinner.
When we got to the village, getting down seemed to be another challenge. Finally, we entered the home of our generous Nubian hosts.
and everyone's curious as to how a Nubian house looks like. So here we are. Aziz will explain. He's a good buddy of his. And I think it was a good experience for everybody to ride a camel and now to experience Nubian hospitality.
The Nubians held their own beliefs, which were closely tied to Egyptian tradition. Crocodiles were sacred and kept inside the house, reminiscent of the worship of the crocodile god Sobek.
He tied them up just to make sure. How old?
4 years.
4 years old already. Doesn't feel like a pet.
People here in the past, they didn't have any fridge or any technology. So they used to weave the reeds of the bami tree and they make those beautiful stuff with it to put the dishes away from the ants and the nuts.
The women kept the tradition of weaving and crafting. In ancient times, Nubia was an important trade gateway for goods coming from southern Africa into Egypt. Everyone enjoyed meeting the whole family and learning more about the Nubian way of life, even getting a henna tattoo as a souvenir. From the Nubian villages, we made our way further south, closer to the Sudanese border. In the midst of the barren desert, we find a most magnificent colossal structure.
This monument was built by Ramses II. If you will notice, there are 4 statues. All of it is him, which means from the north to the south, the west to the east, he is the ruler of the area. The little statues under him is his whole family and his beautiful queen, Nefertari.
Ramses II built this massive temple to show his might to the Nubian people, whom he had difficulty putting under Egyptian control. He lived to be 96 years old, had over 200 wives, more than 100 children. His reign was the second longest of any Egyptian pharaoh, and he had the most number of monuments built all over the country. The extent of his power was immortalized in this temple. Each of his statues stands 65 feet high. Images of his captured enemies are carved on the walls. Various gods and symbols of power adorn the temple's exterior. Inside, we find 8 massive pillars of a godlike Ramses. The walls are filled with scenes of his victories in battle. But the temple's most remarkable feature can be found deep inside.
This is the inner sanctum of this temple, and it's said the sun's rays penetrate all the way inside during the date of Ramses II's birth and his date of coronation.
The axis of the temple was positioned so that on October 22 and February 22, the sun's rays shine directly upon 3 of these 4 statues: Ramses II, Amun-Ra, and Ra-Horakhti, while the god of the underworld Pa is kept in the darkness at all times. Today, the date may no longer be accurate, as the whole temple complex was moved from its original location to where it is now. With the construction of the Aswan High Dam, the structure was in danger of submerging underwater. The entire site was cut into 16,000 blocks, each weighing up to 30 tons, and reconstructed in a safer spot. It was an astounding engineering and logistical feat by UNESCO and the Egyptian government. Next to the Great Temple is a smaller one, built in the same fashion.
This temple was dedicated to Queen Nefertari. It's very unusual because she's depicted as the same size of Ramses II.
The temple reflects the honor and prestige bestowed by Ramses II to his queen consort Nefertari. It is only the second time in Egyptian history that a pharaoh dedicated a temple to his wife. Although there is no archaeological proof, locals believe that Nefertari is of Nubian origin. And this is perhaps why they were able to embrace the Egyptian culture. As our trip winded down, we savored the gentle breeze on the deck and watched the last rays of the sun over the horizon. Our amazing crew served us cocktails on the lower deck as we docked on a small island where they prepared a traditional dinner for us. It was a feast fit for a pharaoh with the best Egyptian cuisine. Together with music and dancing, they were not only good sailors, but good performers too. With the lively and catchy tunes, everyone could not resist joining in the fun. It was truly the best way to cap off our Egyptian adventure. We've traveled from the northern region of Alexandria to the southernmost borders of Abu Simbel. It was a long journey, which allowed us to see most of Egypt. Organizing a trip of this magnitude can be very challenging, but seeing everyone smile in the end made it all worth it. I wonder what they thought of the trip.
Well, first of all, Joy, thank you so much for organizing and inviting us to this, really unforgettable, tour. No? Egypt has been in Chelo and my wish list for quite some time.
But I should tell you, what I appreciate so much is that you've been able to take us through different modes of transportation, riding these camels. You're getting us to live the way they live.
Yes.
So, and that for me is really something.
And I think the best way to travel is to travel with a group, and to travel with people who can become your friends and really be part of your extended family and have different perspectives as well. Yeah? And that's what's nice about being in the company of this group in particular, because we come from different backgrounds, but we are able to share our experiences and our perspectives. It's wonderful.
Well, actually, being a first-timer in Egypt, we had a lot of not so nice things that we hear about Egypt. But now, we said this is one trip we really should not have missed.
And I'm just so glad to be in this tour because I have learned a lot about Egypt, history, and also the culture.
I think the size of Egypt alone is so overwhelming, and this ride on the Nile is something else. It's a big treat. We don't want to leave the place. It's so peaceful, the arts. I would like to go into sculpture after this trip.
Just like her, this is not part of my bucket list also. I did not expect that I will reach Egypt. I will be cruising across the Nile. So it's such a good experience for me.
And what do you think about the food?
Well, obviously, I lost the Egyptian pounds, but
Shocking.
with the food, I gained back the pounds in my body. So the food was really something.
The experience, Aziz was doing a great job in giving us the thorough explanation of how things were done, and then what are the meaning. And then also, having to touch it, like you said, now it gives the full spectrum of the experience.
So many things that you see that you would not really realize that it really exists.
Yes. I just want to thank you for putting this together, because I know it's a lot of hard work, but we have to say that this has made the experience fantastic.
I think it's the sharing aspect of it. I think that's what the show is all about. We try to share what we see with everyone.
Oh, this is one experience that we would like everyone to really get into, try it. It's something that you would probably include in your bucket.
I am glad I was able to share this experience with good friends who are as crazy as I am to go on adventures of a lifetime such as this. Of course, I was also very happy to visit Aziz and Mina again, whose sincere and generous help allowed us to have a great journey. As we dusted the sands off our feet, we realized that travel is meant to be shared, something that we will keep doing here on Asian Air Safari.
This has been your captain, Joy Roa. See you in the next Asian Air Safari! Yay!